Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you back, all of you again. Uh, we'll take a few minutes to before we start, and then during that time, we can take a couple of questions. We have already one question in the group about what we can do to uh, make the plants more flourishing. So that's from Pankhuri Didi. So we'll tackle that question right now. If anybody has a question, they can raise the hand. So in the group, she shared a video about four plants that she has, and the thing the thing that I saw first was the color of the soil. So if people have not watched the video again, they can just watch it later on. But I'm just continuing from where she has shown the video and where she's made us understood the state of what the plants are. According to me, the soil color is brownish. So now we have to start from the basic. You cannot just take the solution to be one and only solution out there. You have to take it from the basic. So what I would suggest is, first thing, you need to uh, use a water that is less of nutrients, like less heavy. In short, RO water. So I would suggest, what I'm seeing is that in the leaves, in the tulsi leaves at the top, the new budding. So when the water is taken up, where is it going? It's going towards the new, new shoots that are coming out. Is going to the new bud that is coming out there. So all the water that goes into building the tree goes into the bud that is on top. So if the bud is having the problems, if the bud is having the insects and all this, so it's trying to show you that there may be something wrong with the water. So that is one thing. Another thing is, obviously, the soil quality can be improved. So how do you better the water? You start with water which has no heavy nutrients, like literally RO water or rainwater, as we talked about water yesterday. Rainwater is hard to get, obviously, right now. So what you can do is just use RO water and see if it makes a difference towards the growth. Usually what happens is, if your water is heavy, as in heavy with metals, now this is not visible, obviously, but if it has dissolved metals inside it, the TDS is high. The plants like TDS which is 10 to 100. Now, even RO water is something around 200 to 300. We even drink RO water which is a TDS of 200, and we can digest that. That's not an issue. But the thing is that the rainwater is between 10 to 100 TDS. So that's trans dissolved solvents, TDS of the water. Um, you also have these gadgets that count the number of TDS that are there in the water. You don't need to get into all that. But for now, what you can do is start watering with RO water and see the difference, if any, in the budding that is happening. The new buds should start to bloom up properly. And another thing you can do is start using tea leaves and compost it, and start at the top. Also put the leaves on top, and the composting you can just dig on the sides, like about inch or two. Just go in, dig a little bit of soil, and then just put the compost and cover it up. So the composting or the tea leaves will start activating the microorganisms to come up. And Devlin Didi also asked, like, where do these bacteria and viruses come? Do they just come from thin air? So the answer is yes, actually. The soil has, for millions of years, evolved like this. When the bacteria and viruses don't get the adequate amount of climate which is there, they go into a unanimated form. That means they are there, but they are not alive. They're not multiplying, but they are there in DNA form. When the conditions are right, they actually start multiplying. So it's like a hibernation stage that these bacteria and viruses are in. So even if the soil is barren, like not desert soil, now that's a completely different thing. But even if the soil is barren, and for example, the rain comes, and you start seeing all this activity going on. So how does that happen? So the bacteria and viruses are there already in unanimated form. That means they're not multiplying, they're not growing, but they're still there. So two things you can do: you start using tea leaves there, because that's the most easiest way to get the best form of composting, which is already, it's brown in color, black gold, as we said. So you have this blackish color of compost and just put it on the sides. You start using RO water and see the difference if it fixes the problem. Otherwise, bettering the soil quality is the answer to any problem that you have. So, yesterday we talked about babying and nurturing the child and taking care of it extremely. If you ask me, I'm not actually just, I'm just aware of the rules. And so I'm actually not even caring so much about the garden. And it's just fruiting, as I showed you the video. The video was processing when I uploaded it. So if you see the video again, it will be more clearer. The YouTube, it keeps on putting the video out in sub quality standard at first, and then it betters the quality. So you can do the same. Just try to understand the rules and the laws, and don't baby the plants and don't baby the garden. You just have to understand that the laws are there, and you understand the laws, and then you just witness. So it's about witnessing. The gardening is about witnessing and being just a facilitator of all the elements that it requires. So uh, when you keep on interfering with its work, then you know what nature does? It says, अच्छा अगर तुम कर रहे हो तो तुम ही करो चलो, और सब कुछ चीजें हमको ही करना पड़ेगा. We'll have to do the plowing, we'll have to do the seeding, and then we'll have to do the pruning of the weeds. But if we leave it to nature, the earthworms will come and plow the land for you. Some things that are not taught in schools also is that earthworms dig uh, 10 feet. So, like, look at the ceiling of your house and to the bottom of the house. That is the depth that the earthworms travel. So it's not a small thing. For the earthworm, it needs that much of area to go from high temperatures to low temperatures and cool places. So it actually digs away. The right amount of an adult earthworm will actually dig away from the top of your corner of your house till the bottom of the corner of your house. That's 10 feet. One story is 10 feet approximately. These days they save money and they put it at 8 feet, but mostly the 10 feet, the earthworm digs 10 feet. So you tell me which plow machine or which tractor digs that much, which tills that much soil. And on top of that, after doing that, it leaves behind a trace. So it leaves behind a trail, because when the earthworm is moving down, it cannot remember to go in reverse, because it has already filled that gap with its excrements. So it's going and it's potting, it's going and eating and it's potting. So it's actually putting the fertilizer in that places, and then it will not come out from that same hole. So it will come out with another hole, and then go back in another hole and another hole. So it's just making sort of tunnels all the way around, and it's rich, and it's enriching the soil with its excrements. And then when the rain comes also, you have this old piece of land which is gets filled up with water, and you have a high saturation of water which acts as an aquifer. An aquifer means it gives water when there's no water on the top level. So this is the kind of work that the earthworm does. So today's topic is microorganisms. um, we'll start with the microorganisms topics as soon as I think everybody has arrived. We'll not wait anymore. Yes, Pankhuri Didi has asked a question. Yes.
Yes, Bhaiya, we don't have RO filter in the house.
Okay.
So, can I put alum in the water and keep it for a day and then use it?
Yeah. See, this is one thing that I was encouraging. Or what you can do is, like, I'm assuming that you're using drinking water to water the plants.
No, actually, it's normal tap water from the bathroom I'm using.
Okay. Okay. So I think the TDS is high of the tap water.
Yes,
That's
yes,
what I'm saying.
yes.
Because if the, and that what happens is that when the plant is taking up that water, the hardness of the water is like it's not favorable. The leaves are trying to grow, but the hardness of the water and the salts, the salts are there. So it's trying to struggle. And then what nature does it? अच्छा तुमको व्यवस्था नहीं हो रही है तो मैं तुमको मारने के लिए आ जाता हूँ. So the insects come in. So the plant is not able to fight that. Yeah, you can use that. It will be a very hectic job for you. Anyway, we can get. Okay, I'll give you a hint. Okay, what you can do is, um, as we know that microorganisms are the balancing as in they do the balancing act. Um, you have access to cow dung, fresh cow dung.
Yes.
And what you do is you just mix that with water, normal tap water, and leave it for a couple of days. So now what will happen is that will become a bio slurry. So this is useful for all users and all viewers actually. This was supposed to be covered tomorrow, but I'm just telling you for the sake of understanding microorganisms, because today's topic is microorganisms. The microorganisms get activated when you put good in it. Good is jaggery. So you put a little bit of jaggery, just paste it up in water, mix that with water, and put that water with jaggery a little bit in the cow dung, and then mix that up with a stick, and you just make it into a slurry, a thick slurry. You leave it for a couple of days, so the bacteria start multiplying in it in abundance. A lot of activity happens, the bacteria multiplying in it. This is actually how methane gas is produced, and that's called BNG, bio natural gas. So this is another project that the government is also working on, how to convert cow dung into a productive fertilizer and gas. We'll not go into that, but you'll start seeing bubbles on top of that sludge, and those bubbles are methane gas. You can actually use that to do cooking, but that's another story. So you need the slurry. So the bio slurry is actually cow dung mixed with a little bit of jaggery water. I'll just give you the formula in the group. It's not very technical, as in it's not bound by ingredients as much as it is the ratios. You just need to be just a little bit of jaggery and water is required there. You just mix that and leave it for a couple of days. Doesn't have to be cold or hot area or anything like that. Just maybe leave it outside. It will start smelling. Maybe the foul smell will not be good. The methane starts to smell. Yeah. So just leave it outside. In a couple of days, that will be turned into bio slurry. Now, what you do is you poke the flower pot with a stick, and then you put the bio slurry, and then you poke again and you put the bio slurry. Just slowly have patience, don't fill up the whole thing with bio slurry. Give it today, maybe after 2 days give it again, maybe after 2 days give it again. So what will happen is the microorganisms have normalized the water, and in the process you will get the microorganisms activating the soil, and also you will get the nutrients that the cow dung has. So a lot of nitrogen is there in the cow dung, and that will also generate good leaves for your tulsi. So this is one way of solving this problem, and it applies to everyone actually. This is called Jivamrit. We are going to make that also tomorrow, but I'm just giving a basic example of how to make Jivamrit. There's atta you're supposed to put in that, and there's cow urine also to put into that to make the right formula of Jivamrit. But I'm just giving you a very basic way of giving the best biofertilizer and quickly get the results. So this is a hack of how to get the quickest results. Yeah. Okay. So shall we start with the presentation? We have many things to cover today also, but very important, all of them necessary to get our hands into gardening. So we'll just start with the presentation. The presentation is visible. Okay. So, organic fertilizer and synthetic fertilizers. On the extreme left, we are seeing that there is the organic fertilizer there. Uh, can you see this arrow here? This arrow means it's going in circles. So, like when I was putting the vegetable peels and the the green waste with the soil, something happens. The microorganisms eat this vegetable peels and converts into nitrates and nitrites, right? So this is very important. In the fertilizer, there is a synthetic in the extreme right. You are seeing that the fertilizer is applied and it goes to the root and it's absorbed by the plant directly. So the fertilizer is applied and it goes to the root and it's applied by the roots to the system of the tree. And not necessarily this is good, because what happens is, for example, if you give a child a mobile phone and you just give him some search criterias, like the child just knows how to do alphabets, so he will get to know only videos that are about the alphabets, because he doesn't know how to search anything else, right? So the plant is in the similar way. If you give it synthetic fertilizer, it will not know what else to take in. It will just keep on producing based on the content that is available, that is in front of it. So the roots will be shallow in synthetic fertilizers, and in organic soils, the root will be deeper because of the porousness of the soil. As we showed in the video in the morning, the sand and the soil is actually grainy. It's granule. There are small granules out there. So the roots also develop faster in it, whereas the roots in this synthetic fertilized places are very compact. So, Pankhuri Didi, that's another thing I noticed. The soil is too compact, and especially for the potted plant, it has to be very porous because the potted plants are supposed to be disconnected from the earth. So they are trying to grow and survive in an environment which is surrounding temperature, and the surrounding temperature might not necessarily be favorable. It might be too hot or it might be too cold. So when it's inside the earth maintains a favorable temperature, which is not the case with a potted plant. So you need microorganisms there, balancing the act. And for the microorganisms, the soil has to be very, very grainy. There's a proof of that, in short, that your soil is full of microorganisms, is that your soil will be grainy. You put your hand into it and it will be like butter, like literally just hand is going in, and it's actually humus and moisture filled, and you just leave it there and it's still like grains, small, इसको कहते हैं हिंदी में दानेदार जमीन, दाने दाने जैसी होती है जमीन. So you need to focus on that, how to achieve that kind of soil for your garden. So I'll just quickly read through this. Organic fertilizers. Nutrients are released at a rate the plant can use, greatly reducing the chances of leaching and runoff. Now, leaching and runoff happens in chemical fertilizers. We're not going to focus on that. But the first part of the sentence, nutrients are released at the rate the plant can use. So, as I said, microorganisms balance the nutrients, and that balancing happens when you are giving it organic, or maybe just facilitating its organic activity. That's the right way to say it. We are not giving organic fertilizer, but just facilitating organic activity to happen. Microbes in the soil break down the organic material, releasing the nutrients. So, facilitating again is breaking down the organic material. Now, what is the organic material? That's your green waste. As I said yesterday, the leaves, the peels, and the tea leaves, and all these things that is green and decaying and able to decay. It just that is called organic composting and organic waste material. So that is actually the gold part that we are talking about. So it just the microbes are the ones that break it down and turn it into soil. Requires fewer applications, which means less work over time. So you don't need to keep on filling it with green waste all the time. The microbes take a little while because their mouths are very tiny, very, very small micro. You cannot even see it with the eyes. So they are at the bacterial level. So they have a lot. When you just put even a small tomato outside, maybe it will take them for a couple of weeks to digest that. So this is an example of how the microbes actually need very little amount of organic material to eat on. Controlled growth doesn't overstimulate the plant, promotes stronger root growth for better disease and insect resistance. Now, when we are talking about farming or gardening, we should also focus on patience. So, nature is all about giving in due time. But when we rush things, or when we go for greed or jaldi jaldi kuch chahiye, so then the roots also don't get to develop. We have farmers that grow produce within 3 months, 4 months, when it used to take 6 months. I'm connected with farmers that they say that they are making moong dal in 3 months these days, when I was aware of farmers making it in 6 months. So you can imagine what happens. And the trees office, the moong dal tree is just this high. So I'm just showing you if I'm visible, something like 2 to 3 feet, not more than that. And the moong dal that was growing within for 6 months, that was like an average height of a small child, like 7 or 8 years old. So about 5 to 7 feet. So you can know the difference, like how much roots there must be there for that tree to be that big in the height of like 6 to 7 feet. And then that roots are bringing in small micronutrients that are required for the body. And now they're making it this moong dal in 3 months. So what kind of micronutrients must be there? And we say that हाँ मूंग दाल में बहुत पौष्टिक होते हैं, but the plants themselves have not grown enough time for that. So organic gardening is actually respecting yourself, you know, and taking the power back in your hands. Instead of complaining that the world is not giving you the right thing, one way is to take control of that situation and start doing your own things. You start with one flower, with one tulsi plant, then you start with the tomatoes, maybe with one legumes, you know, beans. You start with another moong dal. You start with tuar dal. All these things can be just one plant. You just you put it there, and you put the right amount of compost, and you'll have a good harvest. It's nothing to be worried about the space or anything like that. You just have to give it a try, and you'll just gain confidence one by one as you keep it to nature to do the things. As I stated, the earthworm digs in 10 feet. The plow of the tractor will never go that deep. The maximum it goes is 2.5 to 1.5 to 2.5, 2 feet, I think, not more than that. It cannot plow more than that. It's not built to plow more than that. But the earthworm digs all the way deep, and and makes the soil porous enough for the roots to develop. So the fifth point is reliant on soil temperature. Cooler soil equals to slow release rate, which corresponds to the rate the plants can take up nutrients. Now, when you apply chemical fertilizers, that actually increases the soil's heat content. So you have a person who is applying the fertilizer, the soil suddenly starts to heat up. The microorganisms come and try to eat the fertilizer because they're getting it in abundant supply. They eat it up and they convert it into carbon dioxide, because that's what happens, in methane gas. And so we have a lot of activity happening. The suddenly the plant also gets unnecessarily warm when you put chemical fertilizers. And then suddenly the temperature also again drops. So there's a big variation of temperature. There is a low temperature, and then the temperature goes high as you put the chemical fertilizers, and then it's goes down again. So women who are baking the cakes, they will understand this. When you are baking a cake and you suddenly open the oven and you allow the cold air to come inside, and then you close it again, so what happens, the cake goes and flattens out. So it's a similar activity that is happening there. You need to maintain a constant temperature until the cake or the bread ripens. So this is the required, and this is possible in organic farming or gardening. Chemical fertilizer, we will discuss this just for the sake of knowing what is wrong. This is not necessary to know the wrong things. The right things happen themselves, but we need to know what is the wrong things. So synthetic fertilizers give lawns and gardens a quick but short-lived burst of nutrients, which can cause rapid growth at the expense of developing a strong root system. So I'm remembering Kawal Masi's question. She said that she was applying the chemical fertilizers, but then what happens is the growth happens suddenly, and now the cold climate is setting in. अब ठंड लग रही है, so the cold climate is setting in, but the roots are very shallow. As you can see, the roots have not developed well compared to this, where the organic composting was happening. The roots are very deep, so obviously the temperature here is cold, and so the temperature is also going to be cold. All this area will be cold, and after that is where the warm activity is happening. The microbes are there because they also want to survive in a hot area. So the microbes are running down and staying in this area, but in this area the roots are not developed. So what happens to the grass? They don't flourish. And as I showed you in the morning in my gardening video, it's cold out here in Kutch, something like 15 degrees in the morning, but still I have an abundant supply of drumsticks. And there are a lot of drumstick trees around me, but they have no notice even a single flower in it. But my tree has flowers in it, and it has fruit hanging on it, which is also ripening one by one by one. And the drumsticks are not even falling, they just you know they're ripening on the tree. It's not that the flowers are just there and that they're falling, but they're turning into a fruit, and they're sticking. The fruit is still ripening on the tree. What happens sometimes is they fall off in the middle. That also does not happen because the temperature is right down there for the activity to happen. I showed you the ant farm which is happening down there in the nearness of this vicinity. So that's creating the heat that it needs, and the tree feels it's in a tropical area. So that's what we need to achieve. We don't need to apply it and then suddenly it creates a heat, and then the roots just stay shallow, and then when the cold climate comes in, they're not able to survive because the cold nature of it does not allow the uptake of the nutrients. So this is one reason that Kawalmasi, I think the grass is not growing. So it's because of the chemical fertilizers. So this is the proof of it, that it creates rapid growth in the beginning, and then they don't develop the strong root system, and so they just, like, the cold does not allow the nutrients to pass through, so that the plant just starts to wither and shrivel until it gets the right climate. So again, the tomorrow's lesson will be the very adequate one. Jivamrit or bioslurry, that is going to activate the microorganisms, that is going to activate the soil again to be a little bit warmer, and that will activate the grass to grow again properly. So we'll talk about it, yes, tomorrow.
Thank you, Janet.
Yes. Okay, so just continue with the slide. I'll take a couple of questions. You can raise your hand if you want in the middle, because, as I said, a lot to cover, a lot of slides. I had it just 3, 4 slides yesterday, last night, but I think we are getting on track. All of us are getting the things, especially if the recordings are there. You can watch it again in case I'm, too fast to catch on to. But yeah, maybe I'll need to make an advanced course for this thing, because I believe that all this is actually necessary. I don't want to keep you on a shallow end of the place. You need to understand all these things, because if you don't understand the wrong things, then you will keep on doing the wrong things. So you have to understand the wrong things to do the right thing. So that's what we are trying to do here. Okay, more moving will be required due to rapid growth. Water soluble is most forms, hence the contaminate the various water bodies. Most chemical fertilizers, I'm saying, are water soluble, so they leach into the water table down there and they pollute the water table down there. And then the water table gets polluted, and ultimately, if there's a river nearby, that pollutes the river water. And then in the river water, that fertilizer actually goes and feeds the algae, and then the algae start floating on top of the ponds, and then the fish down there, they don't get the food because the algae is covering the top area of the pond. So the fish start to die out. So you see how the chemical fertilizers actually at a vast major scale start to do the wrong things. So everybody is responsible for this, so we need to know what happens. So chemical fertilizers leach into the water body systems at the larger scale, not in your garden, that is a small place, but this is actually what happens. So we need to know this. Because nutrients are released quickly, more applications will be required. This is, as we said, in the natural world. If you baby a child too much, then you'll be responsible for his bringing also, and also as he turns into adult, you will have to keep on giving him money, keep on giving him a business, start a business for him or her. Since you didn't leave it to nature, since you didn't leave it to, you thought you are the parent, you thought you are the giver. So what happens is nature also tells, chalo theek hai, tum hi sambhalo fir, है ना? And sometimes we are seeing this fact happening with a lot of children. I'm saying this with a background of education in the last 10 years, with the schooling industry and education industries that I was with. So the past 10 to 15 years I've been teaching kids in various schools. So I've seen this with my own eyes, and what it does, and what havoc it has happened. And of course the morality of the child is also there, that I don't need to study much. I have my father's business, so I don't need to study much. So the learning attitude also dissolves away. So it's very important, and I'm glad that people are still joining this kind of classes to understand the reality. We need to see the truth, and it takes time for the truth, and it takes patience and a learning attitude. So just one psychological point I mentioned there, not related to garden necessarily, but yeah, if we put a lot of applications, we will be required to put more applications, because we didn't leave it to nature, we left it to us. We didn't leave it to the earthworms, we left it to us. We didn't leave it to the small insects, and we left it to us to give the fertilizer. So yeah, short-term solution to a long-term need. Now gardening, as we said, is something that is going to happen for millions of years, but for short-term gains we are just putting the fertilizer, and then it has this problem of backfiring on us. We'll move on to the next slides now. How many of you have seen this kind of activity happening? in maybe inside a cave. This is linked with watering, so I'm putting up this slide here. So this is basically inside a cave. What happens is there's a small droplets of water that are seeping in from the top of the cave roof, and then what happens is those droplets form a very now this water droplets are actually mixed with nutrients and salts. So what happens is when it comes here, the water droplet stays here for a while, and then that water evaporates. So it creates this kind of structure. So at the bottom, you will see that when it drops there, it also evaporates from that area, and so it climbs up from there. And also from the top, it climbs towards the down area. So this is the kind of structure that happens. So I'm bringing up this slide because this is how you need to water the plant also. So if you're seeing that you need to water a tree, don't water a tree all this area and fill it up with water. What will happen is the water will actually just get absorbed here and the root structure will not develop. So this is a very important crucial point. We say that we water the plant, you will just water this area and the roots will stay shallow and they will develop at this area only whether you water the plant. But what you need to do is to water a very small trickle. So what that does, it creates a sort of place, a sort of moisture in just one small area between this area and this area. So the roots also keep on developing downwards because this is how gravity works, right? But if you use a lot of water, then that water gets spread all over that place. But if you use a small dripping method, so that's why the drip system is adopted everywhere in agriculture also even today. So
Angel,
yes, we need to understand
Angel,
this. Yes, we have a
Angel.
question. Okay, I think one of our users has a mic on. Anyways, so let me just okay. So just continue with the slide. We need to water the plants in such a way, we need to water it very slowly, like maybe even a drip system. You can have a small bottle with a small hole in it and just leave that 1.5 liter bottle or 2 liter bottle on the trunk of the plant there. So what will happen is that will make a small very narrow passage of wet area, and that will create the roots to go deeper and deeper for the water content. So this is one trick that you can use on trees. This is not applicable for the small plants, but this is one trick that you can use on trees so that the trees keep on developing a very deep root system instead of having a shallow root system. If you water the tree here, you will just see the roots develop here because that's where they get the water from, and they'll never go deep inside. So just make a trickle way of watering the plants. Watering the trees. Um, shall we move on to the next slide now? Types of seeds. Any questions anyone has? I think we are on the same page. Yeah. Okay, great. Let me just continue the slide again. Very quickly, I'll just explain what are hybrid seeds. Basically, it's plants that are cross-pollinated. Yeah. So when you say cross-pollination, it's the same species of plant, but you have seeds that are of native origin, but from different plants. So it's like saying that the mother is from Portugal and the father is from Sweden, and then they have a child, and that child is actually more uh, diverse, for example, characteristics. So that is the case with most Americans. You will see if they have their parents, they have parents of different origins. So America was, for example, called the place of where the dreams, the land of dreams. So that became possible because people came there from diverse backgrounds. And this is the case what would happens with hybrid seeds. They are from parents of different backgrounds. So it's like the flower is of another mother plant, and the pollen grains are from another tree or another plant, but the same species, like a papaya for example, is the same species, but now their seeds or their fruit is developing and that actually generates a plant or a tree that is uh, with better characteristics, actually better characteristics. But does it have a generational continuation? That is the question. So we all know that hybrid papaya, this is how it looks. It doesn't have necessarily the seeds that supposed to be there in normal papaya looking, and but it is a very big fruit. So this is the kind of thing is happening. I might be a little bit rude, but since I am a teacher, I'm allowed to do that. So American culture today, it doesn't have roots, or it doesn't know where their parents came from. So all of them are just hippie, and the most greatest number of people who are psychologically imbalanced, you might find them in the North America or places in the Western areas. Why is that? Why is the case? Because the roots were never looked into. They never found the roots. They never found the heritage and where they came from. They never respected them. So they came to the new land, and then the children of that now, they don't know what their roots are. So they're forgetting the culture. They're forgetting the inheritance they have gotten. So they're looking for some things, looking for, and that's why they're actually even adopting Indian cultures and yoga and all these kind of things, because they don't have their own self identity. So similarly, hybrid seeds, they don't have their own self identity. They're very big and good and luscious and plump, most probably even sweeter than the normal native seeds, but definitely uh, the continuation factor, the natural continuation factor is lost there. The seeds are not appearing in these hybrid seeds. So if you want a quick harvest, if you want to explore what is gardening, you can start with hybrid seeds. These are the only kind of hybrid seeds that you get mostly. The second type of seeds is called the selective seeds. Now, the selective seeds are seeds which are native. They are of a particular area. Again, that has its advantages and disadvantages. When a seed is of a particular area, it is accustomed to that kind of climatic conditions. So if you take a papaya seed from a neighbor or from a plant or a farmer who is nearby, and you grow it, it will grow nicely in your area. Are you understanding what I'm saying? So that's the advantage. You'll never go wrong with that. It will grow, it will have its continuation also in that area. But now, if you take this seed and grow it into another land, another climatic conditions, so there it might not survive. And this is a problem in today's world, actually, where we are not exactly accustomed to sit in one place. We might be traveling from one place to the other. So native seeds, or selective seeds as they are called, the word selective means we just go and select the right seed from our farm or from our plot, and we just take the best, like बहुत स्वीट पपाया है ये, तो इसका बीज रख देते हैं, एंड दैट्स हाउ दे कॉल्ड सेलेक्टिव सीड्स. या फिर बहुत अच्छा गुआवा है ये, इसका कलर भी बहुत अच्छा है बाकी फ्रूट से, ये इसका टेस्ट अच्छा लगा मुझको, लेट मी सेव दैट सीड. So that is called selective seeds. And that basically they're natural seeds, and they survive in the sense that there's a little bit less pulp in them, because the plant is concentrating on making the seeds. So you might recall the desi mangoes. The desi mangoes is big in size, and just a thin layer of pulp is there, but the seed is very big. So this is the difference between the hybrid fruit and the um, selected seed or the native seeds. So the hybrid seeds, there are no seeds. Sometimes even the grapes, they are seedless, right? So that's a hybrid grapes. But then there are grapes which have seeds inside them. So those grapes are not necessarily big, they are smaller in size, but they have the seed to continue the generation. So it's up to you. I'm not even judging here, I'm just giving you a clear picture of how these seeds make our seeds are made and how they function. Hybrid seeds are cross pollinated in laboratory conditions, so they might work, they might not work, but since they have a diverse gene pool, they had a different mother and a different father. The pollen grains are from a different plant, and the mother, the flower from was a different plant. So they have a cross pollination there, and then they collect those seeds. So those seeds have the best traits of both plants, and then they have a good harvest that way. But their children or their seeds do not necessarily have the good traits like that. So that is again, as I said, because of the root, they don't recognize where they came from, or the seeds forget their originality. So the seeds are very small, and they don't even appear sometimes. They don't grow to be a full grown plant. And then there are the third type of seeds, the genetically modified seeds. Now, we just talked about hybrid seeds where one type of papaya is cross pollinated with another type of papaya, but genetically modified organisms, that's how they call it, GMO seeds. These seeds have genes from maybe animals or plants or oceanic places or forests, or so these genes are mixed with the seed, and it's called tissue culture. And in that tissue culture they make those seeds through in laboratory conditions again. So that's again another question, because they make it in laboratory conditions, we never know how they work out in the real life. So the genetically modified seeds have the advantage of being resilient to pests. So in this picture we are seeing one is diseased and the other one looks good. So obviously, the one which is looking good actually is the genetically modified one, because it doesn't have the worm digging into the corn. So the corn looks healthy, but it has genetically modified genes inside it. And the top one, which is looking with a lot of worms have infested into it, or it's looking small in size because it lost all the energy, and that is solved. Like everybody has their own problems, but instead of solving it through the natural way, we are trying to solve it through genes. So one of the reasons that we need to understand is that when we are looking for a harvest, the harvest is supposed to be for everyone to share. But most Western culture have developed farming practices in the method of plantations. So they have a big plantation of sweet corn, everywhere sweet corn. And when we look at nature, it never has one sort of plant like in abundance. There's always a variety of plants going there. So if you see the worm has come in and destroyed this corn on top, it is because it's trying to normalize the soil. This plant is absorbing nutrients at a very high level. So the worms are told by nature, I'm using the words told by nature, to come and eat away the plant so that it doesn't harm the normality of the place. But we still use genetically modified seeds now, and we create the so that the worms do not come into it, the worms do not try to eat away to the crop. But then this also invites, as I said, the normalizing factor is there playing for millions of years to come. It will keep on playing. So now this genetically modified seeds are prone to more, you know deadly diseases and more deadly viruses and more deadly types of insects to come and eat it in the future. So this again is also in laboratory conditions, so we are not sure what will happen to their output. It might be looking good right now, but then there's a company called Monsanto Seeds, and they have been sued at least a handful of times by the farmers, because when they grow the seed for the first year they might be giving the good harvest, but then the second year to the third year there's a new type of viruses or insects that have come and they've killed all the crop. So now the farmers again go to the seed people and sue them that we bought such a heavy priced seed from you and now we have lost all the harvest. So Monsanto, if you just look it up in Google, I'll keep the link posted in the group so that you can see what happens when these genetically modified seeds are used. So very appealing in the at the beginning, but at the end, because we don't understand that we don't need to grow plantations, we need to grow gardens. Even in big farms, we need to grow gardens where has a lot of variety of stuff going on. So we need to understand that plantations are the reason for the problems that we have, at least in the sense of food going bad or food getting infested with insects and all this kind of diseases there. So any question there before we continue with the next topic? Any questions about the seed? Okay, so let's continue with the topic about how to control the weeds. So simple technique of controlling the weeds is by removing one of the elements. So like we cannot remove water because the plant is growing. We cannot remove the air because it's really hard to control the air and remove the air for the weeds to grow. So the third way of controlling the weed is by removing the sunlight. So this is a small pot on the terrace. I'm sure it's somewhere on top of a house, and then it has a tomato plant growing there, and you're seeing that it's covered with a black polythene. So now what happens is at this area there's no sunlight going down there, so the weed also do not get the sunlight. So this is one way of controlling the weeds. Obviously this is the most extreme way of controlling the weeds, of course, because there is a polythene used here. There's even this polythene used here. So this is all the industrial way of taking care of the weeds is there. If you ask me, this is the best way to control the weeds. So now you can see here, these are leaves, dead leaves, and they are just dropped below. Like if you can see, there's a grass here. I think you can see there's a grass on one side, and then there is dead leaves on the other side. So people are walking on this place here, and it's covered with mulch. It's called green mulching. So this is another way to cover that land with leaves so that you don't get the weeds happening. So it's covered with maybe an inch or a two layer of leaves, and compressed by the, obviously people are stamping on it, so it's compressed there. So microorganisms are activating there, but since it's covered, the sunlight is not going in, so the weeds also don't come out, and the soil is actually retaining its nutrients, compared to this where you are using a lot of black polythene and non-environmental friendly. Because what happens is this will ultimately get brittle with the sunlight, and it will start decomposing, and microfibers, and that's the big problem today, microfibers of plastics will remain behind in the agriculture land. So this is not exactly the right way of doing it, but it's there in the market. So I'm just not being biased here, but it's up to you to choose your way. If I were to do it, I would do it this way: cover it up with leaves. So, how do you cover it up with leaves? Collect your leaves. Just collect your leaves and pile it up somewhere, And the way to collect them is to use a tool that is called a leaf rack. Now, you can just see from the picture, they're available in the market also. If they are not available in the market, just take a look at this diagram and picture, and then just make it at home, just couple of wires that can be welded together and connected to a handle. So that becomes your leaf rack, and this is the way to collect the leaves. And these are actually the best way of nutrients that are collected, and the best form of fertilizer and compost that you can make from collecting the leaves. So two ways: it controls the weeds also, and it's best form of fertilizer that you can make. Okay, now we are going to the third topic of the day, microorganisms. We are covering this indirectly until now. Even the first day we talked about microorganisms and how they act with the soil and how we need them. But this is a black and white picture of how much they are already existing in our own body, for the matter. You know, so you can see here it is. This is the amount of cells that we are made of, which are called human cells. So those are 30 trillion cells. But look at here, microbial cells. So the problem with counting is that we don't know how big they are. So the microbes and the bacteria are very small in size compared to the cell of the human. So we think that they are not existing, but we are actually 70 to, is it 90? Yes, I think it's 90, right? Let me just zoom in here. Yes, 70 to 90% microbials and viruses, they're just roaming around in our body, and we're not aware of it. So the human body, every human body, not just you and me, but everyone, even the kings and the queens, they had the 70 to 90% bacteria and viruses inside their body. And of course, they must be benefiting us some way or the other, and most of them are actually in our gut. So our large intestine is the place where the last stage of absorption of nutrients happens. So that is left with the bacteria and the viruses. So they're living and surviving there, and that's where this 70 to 90% of bacteria come and decompose at the last level, so the nutrients get absorbed. As we talked in the beginning of the workshop, the microbes convert the wheat into dough and into a roti, and then they roast the roti in fire, and then they present you with the roti. So this is what the microbes do. Instead of you eating the wheat directly and getting your stomach ache, what the microbes do is they prepare the food for you. So that's why even our body allows them to stay, and they are in numbers, not necessarily in size, but they are in numbers of 70 to 90% more than our human cells even. And compared to uh, our genes that make up our, the amount of the eyes location, the hairline, which and the size of our ears, all these are written in our genes. So we have something like 23,000 genes in the human body. But there are, as microbes and microbials, there are about 99%, which is about 2 million genes, of which are signatures of bacteria and viruses in our body even today are existing. So these are all obviously recognized by our human body. That's how they are not killed by them. If it was not recognized by our human body, the white cells would kill them. So the white cells are also aware of these 2 million genes that are surviving in our body and our system. And if I dare to say, somewhere down the line, this is actually getting lesser, and that's why we are having the sort of illnesses happening in our new and sort of recent generation, because the genes of the microbes are getting lost simply because of clinical reasons. I say clinical reasons is because we are too hygienic, or we are too away from nature, or we wear shoes all the time. We're not connected with the earth, and we are breathing air which is filtered, even though it's not good and filled with oxygen, but we are filtering the air. Air conditioners have filters now, so our nose and our lung system do not need those filters. So what happens is the microbes and the bacteria never enter our system, and that's how our genes of these microbes are getting lesser and lesser. So now we are prone to those kind of sicknesses and diseases that suddenly come and attack our body because our body was not prepared for them. So now they're becoming guests in our body, and then they are creating havoc in our body because our genes, our human cells, do not recognize them. So they, when they come into our body, it suddenly increases the temperature of the body, and we suddenly get a cold or we suddenly get a fever. So this is the way the body tries to react with the microbes. It doesn't understand the microbes, it is not recognizing them, simply because we have been away from them. So now what the body does is, when they find a new person, they think it's a new person, it's a new guest, it comes, so it suddenly raises the temperature to kill them. So we are getting fevers every now and then. And this is not necessarily the case with people who are connected with the earth, or who are people connected with the microbes and in village areas, for example. So this is the third paragraph I would like to say. So many native African tribes have a unique way to transfer these diverse microbial genes. Now, you might find it very icky. The word is the I'm trying to use is icky. But when the child is born in an African place, the what happens is the Maasai tribe actually come and visit from far and wide. So the Maasai tribe are living in land which is cultivatable. So they're living on their cows. So wherever is grazable area, they move with the cows, and they're just like basically nomads. But when there is a child in the family, they all come together and wish the child. And how do they wish the child? So they basically spit on the child's mouth. All of them come and spit on the child's mouth. So now this, of course, it's icky, but that person who has a diverse pool of genes of microbes, he comes and spits into the child, and now the child has the highest immune system. As we said, that corona mostly affected those people who had the low immune system, so it didn't affect the children as much, and it affected the older generation. So the child has an immune system is very resilient. So the child's immune system is programmed by various microbes that people are bringing from diverse land. So they somehow identified this, that when they spit on the child, or when the child is getting that diverse sort of genes from outside and far and wide, the child is surviving. So it's like when we have a child, we run for the vaccination. अरे बच्चों को vaccination दो, पोलियो का vaccination दो, इसका vaccination दो, उसका vaccination दो. But the Maasai tribe, they have this simple way of greeting also. They will spit on the hand also, and they'll shake the hand, and that's how they do it. They transfer the microbes. Of course, again icky, but very very intelligent if you ask me, of how to transfer the microbes from far and wide. So this is very interesting. You can Google it up also. Uh, I don't think it's practiced anymore because they are also there are people who are educating themselves. But the Maasai tribe, um, when the child is born, I have seen it with my own eyes. They spit on the small child. Yeah.
But I would like to share one thing, Janak.
Yes.
We talked about these tribes, but
Yeah.
I've seen in my family actually, not
Yeah.
spitting
Uh-huh.
basically,
Right.
but we generally do this,
Uh,
and you see a child and you say thu thu thu.
ah.
That means
Okay.
it relates to something, very significant.
Right. Right.
We do
Right.
that
Right.
thu thu thu.
Yes. बढ़िया चलो. Neeru Didi has also told us something which is, I was afraid to bring up this topic because I had just written there a unique way of how Africans do it. I didn't want to explain it, but see, this is necessary. We need to get to the part which is the truth, no matter how silly it might be. But see, देखो ऐसा ही होता है, and we also go and kiss the child. So obviously that is already transferring it there. Any child that you see, you want to go and hug the child and kiss the child. So that is already happening. But the Maasai have this unique, since there are so many people, they come and spit on the child, then the next one comes, then the next one comes. So it's a very quick process that they have there. But since we have the child in our hands for a longer time, we are transferring it like that, indirectly. No, and these are very small, very minute microbes. They just, even a small handshake, that's how sanitization was prioritized. A very small amount of touch can also transmit millions of them. So
But
yeah.
in modern days, we have stopped, kissing the children. A
Huh.
newborn is, protected from
Exactly.
kisses, from outsiders.
Exactly. So अब क्या
Yeah.
करें, अब क्या करें, समझ बढ़ानी है हमको, we need to educate, and this is the way, one way of going through it. Education, education, education. I was a teacher for 15 years. I know how important it is, and how diverse minds should collaborate together and come up with simple truths, so that we can find this perfect balance that to live harmoniously with the world. So yes, thank you for the sharing, Didi. Okay, so we'll actually covered a lot because I just want to give you a glimpse of all this. I'm not reading even the part that is on the side here. Maybe I can share the slides also with you, but this is the part. You just need to understand that we are this much human cells, and then that part also is just less than 1%. I mean, just 1% is human genes, where your eyes should be, where your ears should be, where your nose should be, what is the color of your hair, what is the length of your body, all this is in these genes. And then the rest of the genes are microbes. All of us have this amount of genes that are microbes. Okay, so the cow and its digestive system, and how it was considered to be holy. When we talk of the cow, we talk of Lakshmi ji. Now, why am I targeting the Lakshmi ji there, and why did she take the position of the cow dung? So this is a very unique way, and the people of the past, they might have put it very very casually, or they might have done it with a lot of thought in their mind, that Lakshmi ji is in the cow's waste or the cow dung. So those who are connected with Hinduism, they might be knowing this, that Lakshmi ji sits inside the cow dung. And what is the cow dung? It has millions and trillions of microbes. All these genes that we talked about here are actually part of them in different stages, in different numbers, in different types, also inside the cow's rumen. Now, the cow's rumen is the stomach where all the grass and all this thing is digested. And when I mean digested, it means that its microbial activity is happening inside there, and is converting the cellulose in the grass to glucose. I'll repeat that. Cellulose, which is the grass, the matter of the grass is made of cellulose, and it's converted into glucose by these microbes and this activity that happens inside the cow's stomach. So the cow's stomach is actually in four compartments. So the rumen is the like the first place that the cow fills it up. So the food travels from here. A lot of grass is eaten. It just keeps on munching and munching and munching and fills up the biggest part of the stomach. And from there, it goes to the reticulum, and then it goes from the reticulum. It goes to the omasum, and then from the omasum it goes to abomasum, and then from there it goes to the small intestine. Now the nutrients are ready to be absorbed by the cow's body, so they go to the small intestine at the end, and then the large intestine, and then it's excreted. So this is where how the cow is really important for our lives, at least when we talk about farming and gardening. So even today we talked about how to get the lawn or your plants fertilized in the quickest way is to get gobar, just lying on the road. Just it's a day or two, it doesn't matter. 1 day or 2 day old gobar, you mix it with water and a little bit of jaggery. Like you mix the jaggery inside the water, so it's easier to mix. You don't have to, you cannot use granules, big chunks of it. So just mix the slurry, the jaggery water in that, and make it into a slurry. And I'll give you the proportions of that, how to do that. Leave it for a couple of days. It's winter, so you have to keep it for at least 3 days, and then you use that to apply to your plants and see the magic happen. See the activity in front of your eyes. You see the magic happen. And I would urge you to make a separate pot for it. Like you have same type of plant in two pots. Leave one pot for your own understanding and for your own satisfaction, that one of them is just watered normally and the other one is watered with bioslurry. So what you will have is in front of your eyes, you will see the difference, and you also get to discuss this subject with others, because it's really important. You don't have to be greedy with your knowledge. You need to share it. One of the reasons that I'm trying to say this thing is that we started out doing organic farming for our betterment, and at the end of the day, I realize we have so much to share, but people are like coming to us, greedily. Okay, iske paas hoga अच्छे से. Even right now, the neighbor might be, when I'm looking at the garden, they just say, "Okay, can I take some drumsticks?" We cannot say a no, but then what do we say? We tell them, yes, you can take the drumsticks, and here is one more plant for you. But they will be like, हाँ ठीक है, मुफ्त में ड्रमस्टिक मिल रही थी, वो अच्छा था, लेकिन ठीक है, मैं ये ड्रमस्टिक का प्लांट भी ले लेता हूँ. So that's what I'm trying to do also. I'm giving them the drumsticks and I'm giving them the plant also, so that they don't get to know and be self-satisfied with their own plants. That's really important. You need to be an ambassador of your own goodness. So how do you do that? You just keep a sample of what was and what is changes that you have made, and see the difference in front of you. So that you can be self-satisfied also. Okay, this is because of this. Now this is so big, and this is because of this. This is not growing so well. So bioslurry, a really important part of the um, um, microorganisms then, and these microorganisms also go into the soil and nourish the soil. So the plays a very important part in the uh, gardening and in the cycle of nature. If you ask me, if people concentrated just on this part, that it does have uh, the Lakshmi ji does reside in the gobar, the whole world will be a different place, because the cow's milk is focused right now, and that's why a lot of bulls are slaughtered and put into the slaughterhouse, and the meat industry is flourishing like that. Even the buffalo waste is also good enough. So now the buffalo meat is being exported out of India. All this is linked with people not having the responsibility of taking their own share of responsibilities. So some people might not have the space, some people might be living in cities, but they can collaborate with farmers who have cows, right? and they can have a fresh supply of cow dung with their milk or something like that. It should happen, I think. Why not? You have milk every day, you can have a milk guy come with cow dung for you. But this again is all in the mind. The mind has to be open for that. अरे छी छी है, बहुत दुर्गंध कर रहा है, इसमें बहुत मक्खियां आ रही है. So this is the kind of coexistence needs to be born into your mind before this kind of appreciations can happen. Okay, this is the slide that I share. I actually added just last night. So, what are the hands of today's day doing? So, these are children about 5 or 6 years of age. And on the other side of the planet, this is what is happening. So, hands these days, are you seeing the kids are not even wearing the shoes? Are you seeing this activity happening here? They're so engrossed, and this little girl is farming with a hoe, and this another one with a hoe there. This shirt is not buttoned up. One of them is going to be a good teacher there. So they have this all mud houses happening on the behind, very very insulated in a way for the heat, and there's no need for air conditions. So somehow I always get attracted to Africa because of this simple fact: the small plots of land, they're growing their own grass or some sort of spinach there, farming there. And look at the color of the soil. Now, should be the beacon of what your soil should look like. A lot of blackness and mulch and humus there. At the same time, the soil looks productive. It's blackish in color. It's not even brown, it's really dark brown. And that's your acid test of how the soil should be. So now you look around all the place, it's all the same color everywhere. So this is the kind of soil that you need to focus on. This is the kind of color that you need in your soil. And this comes, as we discussed. If I can just go back quickly, this comes when you have soil which is full of humus. And humus is basically black organic matter or decomposing matter. So you're supposed to focus on it. If your soil looks like this and this, that means you don't have enough carbon content. And we discussed that carbon is the one which is readily it forms covalent bonds with a lot of elements and compounds. So we need a lot of carbon in our soil. So this is the one. This is the kind of soil you need to focus on to have. Okay. Seeds. Incidentally, I would always prefer to go with selective seeds. But if you're moving around and if you have a lot of your location is not fixed, then I would go for hybrid seeds because they're the second best. And then obviously the worst kind of seeds one would buy is genetically modified seeds. This is basically just made for people who are greedy and want to harvest not taking care of nature, and they just want a quick harvest and get converted to money. So that's the genetically modified seeds for them. Okay, it's hands today. There is a small story I would like to present to you. Uh, this is called the Vilas Palace in Mandvi, and this incidentally, I think one of the movies by what's his name? Sanjay Dutt? No, not Sanjay Dutt. Salman Khan. Sorry, Salman Khan and Aishwarya Rai. There was a movie out there. I'm not getting it, but I remember it was shot in this place. Basically, it's an old movie. It was shot in this place. Now, this place has its story. When this king was making this palace, um, a very good person who was linked with trees came along into that palace, and he told the king that you have built this place and their place is having so much of wind. Now this is in the area where it's near the beach, so a lot of wind happens here and a lot of dust comes along with the wind there. So he told the king that this you have built the castle here, you built the palace here, but you have a lot of dust in this place. And then the king started worrying, oh, this is not a good thing. And then he said, I have a solution for your problem. And he just went around, and I'm just trying to show you what happens is the plant leaves are actually good dust collectors. So imagine you have abundant amounts of plants, or you have abundant supply of vines or climbers going inside your garden, and they're collecting all the leaves. So this is the this is cycling in between, but you can see when the leaves are very glossy, that's when the starting part of the plant and when it's growing. And then during the week or the course of the week, the dust starts to appear on the plant. So now indirectly, when you have plants growing inside your home, inside your garden, you have this sort of dust collection happening. And this is a small story that I'd like to share. Look at this. This is a small video I'd like to play. He planted, just this is the palace here. Can everybody see? Let me just
Yes, we can see
yes.
it.
Yeah. So there are trees on the sides and a lot of area behind the the palace is left barrel. But where the palace is, it's surrounded by different type of trees. Now I'll play the video. It's just an aerial shot of the place, but I'm just trying to make a point here. Let's just play the video and we'll just continue from there. So just look at the amount of trees that are there. I'm just switching off the audio. I don't think it's necessary. So trees on the left, trees on the right, and then beyond a particular space, there is no trees after that. So if I may just get some, okay, I'm not getting the pointer here, but you can get to see. After some point, there are no trees there. After a particular point, there is barren land somewhere, but just near the villa, just near the palace, there's a lot of trees, all directions. And this is the secret of how this palace remains dust free even today. So, if you come to this place, if you are by chance visiting Kutch and you have to happen to visit the Vijay Vilas Palace, you will see how quickly the panning happens. The trees happen to be very close to the palace, and then after a particular point, there are no trees there. So, these trees are actually falling the leaves at different times. I'll just show you what I mean by that. So when you are seeing that palace, it is having those trees and they have different times at what the leaves fall down. So what happens is the new leaves are coming all the time, year round. So, for example, in January, one type of tree is losing its leaves. Then in February, another type of tree is losing the leaves, and then the first one is growing the leaves. So this person who was a good forest and environmentalist at that time, he advised the king to let me convert your surrounding to make it dust free, and this is how he did it. He grew particular types of trees, and all of the trees keeps on bringing down the leaves, and the leaves are all full of dust there. But the Vijay Vilas Palace is never seen with any sort of dust. The workers actually don't go and sweep inside the palace because the wind is flowing, but the wind is flowing through the trees, and the trees keeps on collecting the dust. So another thing that the cities might need to be aware of, that when you grow trees, they are actually controlling the dust inside your vicinity also. So yeah, any questions we need to that you need to ask? We are again at 12. We are reaching very quickly at our end of the session.
There are no questions from
Yes.
my side, but thank
Yes.
you for sharing this last thing.
Yes.
We are building our house in Ramnagar, and I got this idea now that
Yeah.
we have to have a lot of trees around us
Yes.
so that it
Definitely.
remains dust free.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Different.
It's really
di-
mind blowing.
yes. Different types of trees. Not particular one type of tree. Different
Right,
types.
right.
विविधता जैसे forest होता है वैसे ही. You know.
That's what he's planning to do actually.
हाँ बढ़िया अच्छा बात है चलो so we'll stop here. We have covered a lot today. I'll give small video clippings from now on. It's just like I did for the composting. It helps also me to cover the topics quicker. Tomorrow we'll take composting. We even took it today slightly, which is called biofertilizers. And the third thing we'll take is insecticide. No, I'm not going to say the word insecticides, but insect repellents. So those are the topics for tomorrow. And on the last day, Friday, we will cover the types of plants that you can grow in your garden. So that'll be mostly practical stuff on Friday happening. I'll be outside with my camera and we'll just see what kind of things that you can grow in your garden. So hope you had a great session. I enjoyed it also. If you have any question, definitely post in the group. This group is made for you, and we are always monitoring the group. We feel really great when we have questions coming up, eager to answer also. So let's keep it a community kind of thing going, and hope to see you all tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.